mute me stream. Hello. Good evening. Welcome to your Friday night podcast here on Four Lads Had a Dream. My name's Andrew, and I'm joined tonight by my very favourite podder, Stevie, who assures me he's got a good reason for being late, not just, shining up the head. Apparently, it's a legitimate reason why he was delayed this evening.
Yeah, this is actually a God's honest truth of why I was late. So we went out for dinner this evening. We went to Jam Jar just on a kind of a birthday thing. So half went with my youngest son to go to, he goes to goalkeeper training at Rook and Glen Park on a Friday night. So I went with my niece and my other son home so that I could podcast, and my niece and my son were going to chill out. So that was fine. And then we realised that we don't have any keys. So we did manage to find out that we'd left the bathroom window slightly ajar. So we were able to open that and lower my oldest son in to the bathroom, and then he could come round and open the back door. This, however, took some convincing. It has cost me a trip to Smith's tomorrow and a Lego set for the oldest for his bravery. He's only 9. To be honest, he was shitting himself a wee bit. Right, he was. There was tears. There was, please don't make me do this. And it was, son, the pod's due to start in 12 minutes. You really don't have a choice. So we kind of lowered him in, stepped in the sink, and he jammed off. He's absolutely fine, not injured or anything. But yes, genuinely had to get my son to break into my own house and then come and let us in. I thought it would be really funny, by the way, if he just came to the back door and was just like this, like you're not getting in, while he went and got sweets and all that. But yeah. I'm sorry, everyone. Legitimately, I had to phone one of my favourite people and ask if we could borrow one of their kids, because their kids were skinny and brave. Well, can we borrow one of yours, because mine wasn't going to do it, and they kind of just don't live far from us. So that almost happened. So yes, wow. Friday night. That's why I'm late. There was no oiling of the head, not this evening, Andrew, but that is a legitimate reason. I could bring Duncan in here, and he would be able to tell you that's exactly what happened. And this is the kind of things that we put them through as parents. So, yes. Hello, everybody. Hope you've had a better Friday evening than I have.
That's good. Proper parenting, that. Listen, son, get in the fucking window. We need to... Daddy's got a podcast, It's very important.
Yeah, the first couple of times didn't really work, and he was a bit apprehensive, and it was getting to the point where, wee man, you're going in this window, whether you like it or not. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. It was an eventful start. Well done to Duncan, because he saved the day, thankfully. So yes, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Friday Night Pod. Andrew, good to see you.
Let's not say that we don't do sacrifices for this podcast, right? There's a lot of effort and work that goes into this. Folks, it's a Friday pod. I'm hosting it, so it's going to be off the rails anyway. But it's a pleasure to be here. We have, unfortunately got to talk about Rangers. We've got plenty to talk about. I think there's the press conference, there's the minutes of the fan advisory board. But I think it's worth bringing up mention that you got, Stevie, in the press conference. I don't think it was directly at you, but he did say that he was perturbed by comments that the team didn't look like it had been coached properly. Now, he could have spoken to, I think, anyone at Ibrox and got the same response to that. It didn't need to be fan media telling him that. But nonetheless, I thought it was an interesting comment to make, because so far it doesn't actually look like the team's been coached. I'll say it. I don't care. But it's an interesting comment to make for sure.
Right. Okay. So first of all, I had a lot of comments asking me this morning, were we allowed to be at the press conference, Heart in Hand, and Four Lads weren't there. I've already said this previously, but I've got a new job. So I work Monday to Friday, 7 until 3, and I won't be at any midweek press conferences or any pre-match, anything like that. The only time I'm going to be at a press conference is after the game on a match day. Rangers have been absolutely fantastic with us. We've not had any negative feedback after last week. We have spoke to them, as we always do anyway, on a normal kind of outing, and there's no issues at all. I will be there tomorrow. I will be in the press gantry. I do have media access. David doesn't go to press conferences either from Heart in Hand, but Colin was there as part of Heart in Hand this morning, and Mark Dingwall was there as follow as well. So this is not a fan media thing. This is not a Rangers thing. Just to make everybody aware, Rangers have been literally fantastic with the access, and we're very privileged to be there. So please don't anybody think that there's an issue, because there's not. We're allowed to ask what we want, when we want, as long as it's done in a professional manner. Rangers are great with us. Like, genuinely, Andrew, there's no issue. So getting to the point, now that that's been cleared up, Russell Martin's statement today that he doesn't like being in the position where people are saying to him they don't look coached. I don't have an issue with it in the slightest. I don't think it was a dig at us. I think genuinely that he should be annoyed by that type of comment. It should irk him, it should annoy him, and it should spur the players on and him to make sure that we're never in that position again to be able to say that to him. Because I want Russell Martin to be able to come in 3 or 4 games and go, Stevie, do you still think we don't look coached? Because we've won 4 games, and I want that. Now, a similar thing happened with Philippe Clement when I said to him that the football's boring, don't like watching it. And then I think we won a European game 4-0. We beat somebody 4-0 in Europe. Was it Stoya? We beat Stoya, Bucharest 4-0. And he came in, the first thing he did was take a laugh and joke and made a wee beeline for him and said, was that still boring? And it was funny. I don't mind that in the slightest. I want Russell Martin to be in that position. I want Rangers to be winning games. And by the way, Andrew, see if I have a pop at him, right? Which I did, and not directly. It wasn't a pop and a personal thing, but I mean a pop about the game and stuff like that. Then I expect, and I don't have an issue with him if he was to have a pop back at me. It's not a personal thing. I got on with Russell Martin really well. He's a really nice guy. I've said this like loads of times. He's very self-deprecating. He likes a laugh. And it isn't a personal thing. God, last week on socials when people were saying about how he looked, I said the guy's not well, and I actually defended him. So it's not a personal thing, but it's just how I felt at the time. I don't feel like you could watch that game last week and say, we looked good, we looked like a formation, a shape. That was one of the worst 45 minutes I've ever seen. And yes, look, folks, I was emotional at the time. Absolutely, I was. I was really pissed off. I was really angry. So maybe I didn't deliver it perfectly, Andrew, or eloquently, but it's real. And my feelings at the time were, Russell, we do not look coached. We do not look like a formation. We do not look shape. The players are scared. At which point he interjected and said, yeah, the players are scared, mate. That's not tactics. That's all right. I don't mind that. So I've got no issue with Russell Martin. Like, genuinely, I don't. I know that I've said before that I don't think he is doing well and shouldn't be Rangers manager, but that's an opinion. It's not a personal thing when it comes to Russell. So it's the same with tomorrow as well. If things don't go well, I don't want him coming into a press room and thinking that I've got an agenda against him. I'm not a subplot in the Russell Martin Rangers story. It needs to be about Russell Martin. And more importantly, Andrew, it needs to be about Rangers going and get a victory and performing well tomorrow, because that's all we want.
Yeah,
and fuck up on Paddy Power again because I'm miserable in the gantry. That's not happening.
Look, I think the least Paddy Power should be doing is just crediting us. Just a wee little link to the YouTube. If they're going to use our content anyway, may as well help us out. I'm sorry for getting up in the middle of that. I just realised that my cats were getting into the feeder, which had been left open because some inconsiderate idiot had left it open while I was topping it up. Who could that be? Couple of things, right? First of all, thank you to Big Rod for gifting 10 memberships. Incredibly generous as ever. You do not need to do that, but we appreciate it immensely. Everyone who's now got a free membership off that, they get snapped up instantly. But enjoy. It's all part of the community. It's been the generosity of folk that have helped grow the membership, and I think as quickly as it has. So many thanks for that. I think in terms of the press conference, when folk are talking about, did you take that personally or should he take that personally? It's absolutely that. All we want is successful Rangers. And that should be, I believe that's all Russell Martin wants as well. We're looking to get a successful Rangers football team on the pitch and playing. That's the frustrating thing for us, is that we haven't seen that so far. So it's a question of, we need to start seeing that change. Training's one thing, but it's not relevant to what we're actually seeing on the pitch. They can train fantastically during the week, but if they don't deliver this weekend, for instance, then it's not going to amount to much. And also, thank you for bringing it up, Stevie. Sean Abbott, thank you for the £10 donation as well. Just commenting. you know, I mean, obviously it was the fact that it was very nice about you as well, Stevie. So, you know, another reason to bring it up.
Yeah, I would have put that up for nothing, to be honest. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for the donation. Listen, Andrew, I will say that the feedback and support I've had, loads of messages, loads of phone calls, loads of contact on social media. I really appreciate it. It's a strange thing because, as I said at the time, I didn't really think about it. I didn't highlight it. I didn't put it on our socials. I didn't really do anything with it. And I came home that night, and subsequently the kind of content from it and where it's went on Talksport and all sorts of places has been big. So I'm not sure, you know me, I'm not sure I really enjoy that kind of spotlight, but the support of everyone. And even, by the way, I've had a few people contact me and say, look, I didn't really appreciate what you've said. You could have done this, you could have done that. I don't mind that because everything's a learning kind of thing. Nobody's been nasty about it. Nobody's had to go at me. There's been some people that have disagreed, but it's all about that, isn't it? So I really appreciate it. So thank you, Sean, for the donation and the kind comments. I really appreciate it.
I do want to say as well, like, I've been on that gantry with you, Stevie, after a poor result. Just an immense trip up to Scotland to watch St Mirren batter Rangers about. That was delightful fun. But you get that from the crowd there, you know, because we don't walk straight down. We have to walk past the fans to get back down to the media room and to get to the press conference area. You get told if the game's going poorly, if the result's gone against us, you get told on the way down. You've got to tell him, Stevie. You've got to let him know, Davey. You've got to let him know. You know, all of that happens on the way down. So I think all we can do is pass on the fans' feelings because we're there as fan media, you know, so-called fan media apparently, and
fan media.
Yeah, so-called fan media. So we are there to represent the fans. Apparently, we're there to ask harder questions than the regular journalists as well. That's what we're there to do. So it's I had no issues with it as a fan. Obviously, I'm not. I genuinely would probably say if I had an issue with something you'd done, Stevie, because I feel like we have that kind of relationship where I can be open and honest with you. But as a fan, I had absolutely no issues with that because it's a question that had to be asked of Russell Martin. You know, team doesn't look coached. What's your plan for getting us results here? And honestly, the best thing that he could do to shove it down all our throats is to get the win on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've never really cared about, you know, how I look or the fact that in 6 months' time I could look extremely stupid, or 6 weeks or 2 months or whatever, by the fact that I'm saying right now that this is the way it is. I don't care about that in the slightest, Andrew, because see if Rangers are winning in 6 months' time, we're where we should be or where we all want us to be, and shiny things are looking imminent, then great. I don't give a shit in the slightest how I look, excuse the French. So I don't mind that in the slightest. And you know, that's the way football is. You know, 1 minute your opinion's bang on, and then the next you might be made to look silly. Nobody wants Rangers to go and win handsomely or even scrape a win tomorrow the way it is, than more than everybody watching this podcast, regardless of what their beliefs is or how they felt, because the only thing that matters is Rangers winning. I've said before, I quite like Russell Martin as a guy. I think he's a nice guy. I think he's a laugh. I don't really buy into some of the things that have been said about him, but that doesn't mean that when it comes to it, as I told him when I first met him, that, you know, we're not going to be pals, because at some point I'm going to have to call you out, and at some point you're going to disagree with things I've said to you. But it doesn't mean that we don't get on and kind of have that respect. I certainly got respect from his Rangers manager. So, but it was interesting, Andrew, today. I felt at the presser, he did get it light at the presser by the questions that were asked to him. So there is a clear difference in how fan media approach a press conference and maybe what people want to regard to what he was asked today. I was disappointed. We never found out anything about the squad, really. I mean, where's Lyle Cameron? What's happening with Joe Rothwell? Nico Raskin's back. That's fantastic. But where's the other? What's happening with the squad? You know, it's a cup game. So Liam Kelly was here. Does that mean he's starting? What can you tell us? So I was disappointed that we didn't get any kind of proper news on that. Joe Rothwell, for all intents and purposes, in the 15 minutes he was on last week, looked a lot more attractive in how he played instead of what he has been playing. And he actually began to pull the strings. He had a couple of driving runs. Where's Lyle Cameron? We've not seen him, I think, since Bruges. So What's happening with him? These are questions I would have wanted asked, and we haven't found out. So the questions today, I understand them, but I would have preferred them to have been a wee bit more kind of probing into where's our squad, where are we at, and a wee bit probing on Martin himself. No disrespect to Russell, but how he is and how he copes and what his family are saying and stuff like that isn't where we want to be and isn't what we want to know at this moment in time. So yeah, it is what it is. But you get that balance, don't you? I mean, mainstream media and fan media, I think you saw the difference today. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. There's no criticism for me. It's just that, we might have been in a position to ask different things today on the squad and what's happening and how we want to, who's going to be available and things tomorrow. Is Fernandez going to play? It's a cup game. Will we see him? How does your squad look? What's happening with Rothwell? Does Nico Raskin then come back into your thoughts as a starter, or is this from the bench? What did you make of last week's performance now that you've had time to reevaluate it? You haven't really been able to explain to us where did it go wrong in your eyes? That sort of thing I would much rather hear. So, and I think it's beneficial for all of us. And we can all say, look, he would have waffled and he would have said that and blah, blah, blah. That's absolutely fine. I understand that. But I would have much rather him being asked, where did it go wrong last week? What do you want to improve? How can we improve it? What are you going to do to fix it, etc.? Where did you see the positives? Will you consider a change of shape back to where we were? Except there's loads of things we could have asked him that would have been more beneficial for us in the support than maybe what we got today. But that's just an opinion.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that, the reason that Four Lads and other podcasts have been so successful, the reason why fan media has grown so much, is because you don't get that kind of stuff from traditional media. They're just in there for headlines and they're trying to just sell newspapers. They're not interested in actually getting information about the team. If they can get a decent quote from Russell Martin about how stressful he's found the past week, that's great. That's the headlines written for themselves. You can generate a few. But if you get, I just want an update on who's fit, who's available, who's alive for the squad. Have you killed Lyle Cameron? What's happening with him? Is he dead? Is he around? What's happening? I think it is going to be interesting. I think it's worth probably talking about that now. The Hibs game tomorrow, in terms of who's going to be lining up for that, because as you say, Liam Kelly was in the press conference. Typically, Rangers performing well, you would see a bit of rotation for a cup game. It's an opportunity to maybe try out some new things. I mean, one new thing that I'd like us to try out would be winning games. But, that aside, hopefully we do see just a kind of change of approach, because it has not looked effective so far in terms of what we've been trying to do. I would like us to see us more on the front foot. I think you're right in that kind of 10-15 minute spell we had when Rothwell came onto the pitch looked good in terms of starting to knit things together. But it hasn't looked like any of the football we've seen played before or since either. So for me, it'd be interesting to see if Raskin does come in, if he can generate some more of that verve that we need to be seeing in the midfield, because it's been very kind of pedestrian, I think, so far in the games we've had previous.
Yeah, I mean, we could make 100 changes. Couldn't we? Just quickly, Kelso, yes, you did miss the start. I've already explained that Stevie is at work. He has a new job, so I was not there today. And David, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, so David, that's during the night for him, and he doesn't go to press conferences either. So to be fair to David, travelling from Colwyn is a long way. So we are not banned. We are there tomorrow. Rangers have been nothing but supportive with us since the start of the week. So that's the answer, my man. Just wanted to highlight that. We did say it at the start, but I think it's important. I don't want anybody thinking that there's more going on here. There's certainly not. So tomorrow, Andrew, it's interesting because, do you know what? At least when it was 4-3-3 and we could see an identical style as such, it wasn't perfect, right? It wasn't. I'm not trying to say it was there and it was all glamorous or whatever. Half the time we were going, but at least we had something where we understood. Russell Martin's changed away from that the last couple of games. Now, we were more solid against Celtic. At Hearts, we were equally all over the place. So I think he's got a real issue. What does he do tomorrow? Because I would rather see, and this is going to sound really quite bad, if we're going to get beat, I would rather he done it under his own principles and we could see what he was trying to do, rather than a game like last week where, and I'll say this again, I think the only time we really looked dangerous or looked like we were putting on pressure is when we almost abandon everything, get it out wide, chuck it in the box and try and pressure, and runs do start coming, and it's almost like the players take it upon themselves. So what are we going to do tomorrow? That's the biggest thing for me. I don't know. Are we going to change? Could we go 3 at the back? I think Giga's got to come out. I think Cornelius needs to play, but Fernandez might play because it's a cup game. Does that mean Stewart come out? But if Stewart and Butland comes out, we don't have any experience as it is. So if they come out, where does that leave us? You know, I don't think that Max Aarons can come back in, because last week I would have probably have started him, but I don't think James Tavernier is going to come out if they need that experience. McComb is the only left back alive at the football club, so he needs to play. Nico Raskin should be starting in midfield, but where is he? And what's really been going on there? We don't know. There's still that vacuum. We're probably unlikely we're ever going to know. Is Joe Rothwell fit? We don't know. You know, Asgard, where does he play? You know, is Mikey Moore going to start because he's not been great? So does Ant-Man come in? Does that mean Gassama might be back on the left, where incidentally he's been good, so please stop moving him about? Majowski needs service. Chermiti cost 8 million. He's got to start at some point. There's a lot of questions about what we're going to do tomorrow, and I don't have the answers. I really don't know. I don't know what formation we're going to line up. I don't know how we're going to play, Andrew. But at least, look, do you know the thing is, it's interesting, at least we do have options. We do have options, and we can at least do that from, you know, change it up and fix things. Or we could go 4-4-2, 3-5-2. We could go 4-3-3. We could go whatever he wants to do tomorrow. So that's going to be interesting. But there's a lot of things that we could do. I honestly don't know how we're going to line up or what we're going to do. So your questions are as good. That's why I would have liked to have seen him pressed a wee bit more on what's happening tomorrow. How's your squad looking? Your formation? What you're going to do? And he might not have told us anything. But, you know, I mean, there's a case where he might have said, look, Finlay Curtis is going to come in and start. Mikey Moore's going to do it. You know, whatever. But it's interesting because being a cup game, a few might have got an opportunity, but he needs to win this. Mm-hmm. So he needed to win it anyway, but by Christ, he needs to find a way to win this one. So interesting to see what he does, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we've been playing well and it's an opportunity to experiment. We haven't been playing well. So it's got to be first principles, win the game first. I completely agree with you in terms of Kassan. He should be out on the left. Him and Meg Homer have had a really promising partnership. So obviously they got split up almost immediately as soon as it started developing. But for me, that's to your left-hand side for sure. The right, I agree, that should be Tav at least. I don't know who the best person is to play in front of him, whether it's Mikey Moore or Ant-Man. Neither have looked particularly impressive so far. For a midfield, though, that has to be Nico Raskin. I think has to start in that if we've got any ambitions of, you know, winning this game. The defense is the tricky one because we have so many unknown quantities there, so many lone players as well. It's a really difficult one for me, that. But if you're looking at your strongest kind of team on paper, at least, Suter on the right and then Derek Cornelius on the left, I think would make sense to me. That's two players who have got strength in those positions, who we've seen internationally just, you know, a couple of weeks ago, that they played both really well in those positions as well. So we know Raskin's at least back in the squads, but that was the only update that we had on that. But for me, he should be in there, potentially Diamande, but he can blow hot and cold. Yeah. And I think otherwise, Rothwell, Asgard, for me, are still unknowns, really, because I don't think we've seen them at their best. Rothwell potentially aside, but we don't know if he's injured or not because no one asked the question. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how we go for this.
Yeah, I mean, what would I do? I think I agree with you. I think Cornelius would start on the left for natural balance, Suter on the right. Liam Kelly, okay, I understand that with it being a cup game. Tavernier, right. And that's despite me saying Max Aarons should have started last week. I would stick with Tav. Tav wasn't great last week. Yeah, I mean, it's a flip of the coin, really, but Max Aarons has hardly been great. So, I mean, I'm not trying to justify. I'm just saying that, you know, what do you do there? Left, Mikoma, as I said, he's the only one. Midfield's where it starts to get tricky. Nico would start every day of the week for me, but that's a different story. Diamandi, hot and cold. Conor Barron did all right against Celtic, was really poor last week. Rothwell is maybe more suited to an 8, but Nico needs somebody in with him because Nico does run about a lot and leave his position sometimes. That's probably why Russell's had so much issues with him. So does he need Diamandi or a Barron in there with him just to kind of... And then Asgard could play as a 10. The wings, Gassam on the left and Ant-Man on the right, purely because I want to see Gassama back on the... Or Gassama on the left-hand side. And Ant-Man has got all the potential to be good, Andrew. And we saw glimpses of it against Pilsen, but hasn't kicked his own arse since. And then up front, Miovski, I think picks himself, but we really need to start getting, service to that man. So, listen, I don't think that the 11 is as easy as it was when we all were sitting in pre-season saying it'll be Rothwell, Raskin, Asgard, etc. So, the midfield's the biggest issue. Perhaps if he can fix that, then you might see a real turnaround, because we need to give the ball to the wingers in better positions as well. Too many times we're given to them and they're too deep or they're not. Give it to them so they can run onto the ball, Andrew. See, when we first got Ant-Man against Pilsen, Aarons was flipping that ball for him to chase. There was one right at the start where he got to the byline, cut it back. We didn't get anything from it. And then the actual goal, the third one that came, was that type of move. And since that, we've just stopped. Every time we give it to the winger, it's back to goal, or they're too far back, or they're having to take on 2 or 3 players, and it's not possible. Start trying to use the ball properly. And because we've all went in on Russell Martin, the players need to buck up their ideas as well pretty quickly. And they have to start very soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy and fun to lay a lot of blame at the manager's feet, but it cannot be all just one person, because the players, regardless of what they're being told in coaching, once they're over that line, then it is on them to a degree. They need to be delivering more, because not being able to pass the ball between each other is not a coaching issue. That's a player issue, for sure. I'm seeing a lot of Curtis getting mentioned in the comments as well, and he completely slipped my mind. But for sure, I would like to see him as an option. Potentially, you have him instead of Ant-Man. But I'd certainly like to see him feature and get a good cameo for the weekend, because he's a player who, again, is exciting. He makes stuff happen. And I don't know if that's just because of how he plays. He's always wants to be direct and just run at people, which is great. But it gives you something different. It doesn't reduce you to be one-dimensional football, which I think we fall into quite a lot of the time. He at least is capable of changing it up and doing something different. But we shall see what happens when we get to tomorrow. It's certainly going to be interesting for sure. I think one thing that is clear from the minutes of the fan advisory board is that Russell Martin isn't going anywhere now. He's got the full backing of Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell, at least. We know that the owner, Andrew Cavanagh, will be jetting in, which I think we have to legally call it, for the game this week. Russell Martin did say that wasn't unplanned. It had been apparently scheduled for 2 weeks, or he knew about it 2 weeks ago, so no major issues there. But in terms of the minutes of the fan advisory board, I mean, we've spoken about the importance for us as fan media communicating, the messages of the fans. And I think the fan advisory board did speak to, a lot of our concerns as well. Talked about stuff that we've talked about in the pod as well, the concerns that we have about the level of performance, the fact that we have not been winning stuff, the fact that a lot of our signings appear to have been project players as opposed to that experience. And it's a 6-page PDF, folks. I'm not going to stand here or sit here comfortably and read it out. But what I will do is send it out as a link in the chat. So, folks, if you are interested, I would advise you to go and check it out. It is interesting to see exactly what's being talked about there. One thing that was made abundantly clear, though, Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart both acknowledged that performances haven't been where they need to be, but that Russell Martin's going nowhere right now.
Yeah, and they were adamant about it more than once. Look, first of all, thank you to the fan advisory board. On behalf of me, I don't speak for anyone, but I appreciate these guys giving up their time, trying to get answers, pushing what isn't everybody's opinion. I know that, and it's not. We're a broad church of folk and opinions. you know, 2 Rangers fans on an island and 3 supporters club by the weekend is mostly where we are. But the majority of the fans all feel a certain way, so they've got to try and take that, and you can only kind of respond to what the support's been like in the stadium and away games and that to be able to judge that, Andrew. So I took a portion of this, which I think's probably underlines where Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell are. They stressed that applying binary triggers to managerial decisions was unwise, as context is everything. He emphasised that while results were disappointing, the club felt that it was important to avoid making a reactive change. He reiterated the desire to avoid short-term reactive cycles of change, pointing out that Rangers have gone through multiple coaches in recent years without resolving the underlying issues. While conceding results and performances had fallen short, it was noted that meaningful progress was being made behind the scenes that warranted backing. He acknowledged the need for the board and leadership to share accountability, noting that responsibility could not rest solely with the head coach. Okay, so that's complete backing. One or two things is happening here, Andrew. Now, you will remember what I told people and what I fed back during the summer was that if we are 10 points behind by the end of September, it doesn't matter because we're pissing into the wind when we complain about Russell Martin. And even I thought that I sounded like a condescending wank when I was saying that, because people are right when they say about the fans and the reaction and everything else. But my point was at that moment, everything that we're getting told from inside the football club is that they will not buckle to fan pressure. We will not react. Russell Martin is their man. They believe in him and he's staying. So your protests, your banners, your everything else is all going on deaf ears because we're not listening, because this is a route we're going down. That's one option. The second option is they're just backing the manager because he's in position. And that if tomorrow goes as badly as we all fear, the protests and everything else, come Sunday evening, Russell Martin will be out in his arse regardless. Now, the issue with that is that Patrick Stewart, backing him to the hilt, has made himself look extremely vulnerable again, because one time, understand it, twice, this is now strike 3 or 4 for Patrick Stewart in the eyes of the support. Not all of them, but in the eyes of the majority will be questioning this man. Kevin Thelwell coming out and saying in a club-related interview that he's one of the, or the best young coach that he's ever worked with. I can't remember if he said one of or the, puts his position in a very vulnerable state, because the fans will go, right, once you get rid of Russell Martin, we'll take Kevin Thelwell and we'll take Patrick Stewart as well. So all that added in, Andrew, they backed themselves, and this goes to what I said the other night when I was on with Chris and Kenny. I think they backed themselves into a corner that they don't need to be in. I would rather they always come out with a line being the manager's position and the positions of everybody at this football club are dictated by what goes on in the pitch. Leave it at that. Leave it at that. Because ultimately, Andrew, the line here of, and I'll just read this again, it was noted that meaningful progress was being made behind the scenes that warranted backing. Nobody gives a shit, mate. Sorry. If we're producing what we are on the pitch, you can tell me that areas in the club are doing really well, and I don't believe that either when you see the amount of folk that are actually leaving Rangers in their droves. Good people are leaving their positions all over the club at this moment in time. So I don't believe that in the slightest. I think that's trying to polish the proverbial, and I don't think it works. And you can only bullshit a bullshitter for so long before people go, I don't believe that in the slightest, because this is what we're seeing on the football pitch. While we continue to see a football team that doesn't look organised, doesn't look like they're playing for their manager, doesn't look like they understand the directions, and a manager that has not been taken with the support and everything that goes with it, nobody cares what Patrick Stewart says when he says meaningful progress was being made behind the scenes. Nobody cares. And that's, as brutal as it is, and I'm sorry if it is, that's just where we are as a football club. And you see it filter down, Andrew, from all levels, women's team into the under-19s, the youth teams, when we do sell charity nights and everything else, everything filters down from what happens in the first team. You know what I mean? And that's where it ultimately is. So as much as I understand that they've got to try and present a united front and they've got to try and tell us what else has been going on, The only thing that matters at Rangers Football Club is what happens on the pitch, and everything else is a byproduct of that. So somebody telling me that meaningful progress has been made doesn't wash with me in the slightest, I'm afraid. I don't. It's like going back to Russell Martin saying last week to me that we're by the way, buddy, we're fantastic in training.
Yeah.
I don't care in the slightest, because what we are seeing in training is not materialising out there when they look like a bunch of strangers on the football pitch. So Andrew, rant over. I apologise for that. I got on my wee high horse for a minute there. This is a comfier chair, by the way. Much better chair than the AC/DC stool, which now is resigned to being my wee footstool again. But I just, I understand the Fab meeting and I really appreciate them. But it was always going to be a situation where it looked like Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell were just brushing them aside, because they ultimately have no choice other than to back this position. But by backing this position, they're massively at risk now, because the support will just go. You backed him right into a corner. So once he goes, which hopefully he doesn't, hopefully this materialises into something nobody expects. If he does go, and when he does go, they're in the firing line now, because the support won't stop at Russell Martin. They might quiet it slightly, but ultimately Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell will remain in the firing line. And by the way, they then need to go and appoint the next one. So how much do you trust them, given what they've told us already?
This is the position that we're in. You're completely right when it comes down to no fan cares about how wonderful the training sessions are, or if whatever progress made behind the scenes actually means. That, I mean, what are you actually pointing to? We've reduced the size of the depreciated assets on our team. Who cares? No one cares about that. Even accountants who are Rangers fans barely care about that, because the most important thing that they care about is shiny things being waved at us at the end of the season or during the season. If we, progress in the League Cup, for instance, it's not good to be pointing to that and saying that that's why we can't get rid of the manager, because you're completely right when you say this is a results-driven thing. It all comes back down to what's happening on the pitch. If you aren't getting results on the pitch, then the pressure's just going to keep mounting and mounting. We know that there's going to be a fans protest organised by the Union Bears tomorrow at 4:30 outside the front doors. We know that Europa League ticket take-up has not been, I think, what would be expected. There's a few factors for that. It's not just the Russell Martin thing. It's not exactly a great set of fixtures. There's a couple of nice ties in there, but it's not a lot to get excited about. But we know that the attendance for the cup game tomorrow is not likely to be great either. And there are reasons for that. Scottish football is a lot different from English football, because you don't get a magnificent TV deal up here. Your bread and butter in terms of your income, if you don't have Champions League football, is footfall at the stadium. It's the fans coming in, paying for their tickets, paying for their season tickets, buying pies, buying Bovril. That's the thing that generates the money for a Scottish football club. And if you start pissing off the fans, if you start losing them, then you start losing your primary income stream. And that is not a position that Rangers can be in, especially if these the new owners have got aspirations of taking this football club to, a more successful place. They pointed to the lack of league titles that Rangers have won over the past few years. We're on course for our worst start in 40 years or something like that at the moment.
48 years, I think Davey said.
Yeah.
1978, whatever the math is on that.
I believe so, yeah. Way before I was born, anyway. Just to annoy Davey. But yeah, it does not look like we are in progress in terms of achieving more success right now. And that's going to be the thing that fans point to. It would be one thing if we were coming close in games, or it looked like it was nearly there and we just weren't quite getting it. But we've said it multiple times. It's abysmal football that we're watching at the moment. It's dire. We're seeing dreadful games of football where we create nothing and we leak like a sieve. That's not good. So we really need to get in a position where we start winning things. You cannot point to stuff off the field. No one's going to be excited by that. It's got to be, lads, here's how we're going to start winning stuff. Or even not even talking and just winning stuff. That'd be great. But we'll
Andrew,
see.
Andrew, can I just kind of respond to this a wee bit? I've seen this being said a wee bit on social media, and I'm not defending the club, as the club are big boys and girls and they can defend it themselves. But I just wanted to say something. On a normal match day, we kick off at 3:00 and the turnstiles open 1.5 hours early at 1:30. That's normal match day procedure every single match day. They put out a statement tomorrow. The fans can get in from 4:15. It's a 5:45 kickoff. None of that's changed. They always put out a pre-match kind of update telling you when they can get in. You know, as much as I love being a grumpy twat on these podcasts and just in general when talking about Rangers, I'm told, I don't think this is any different here. Like, genuinely, Teddy and the folks that have mentioned it, like, I don't think Rangers have done anything different or wrong from what they normally do, Andrew. So this is me not trying to get back in their good books. I am not banned. I'm still allowed in. I'm just explaining that I don't think they've genuinely done anything differently here, mate. So I thought that was worth pulling up just as a sort of question point made tomorrow.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a regular match day as far as the operational side of it goes. But it's a must-win game as far as Russell Martin and this team go. Because I think regardless of the backing that you get from the executive team, it's going to be at the board level that really decide this. If Andrew Cavanagh comes in and sees a half-full stadium, which is unhappy, and if the results go badly, then it's going to be toxic at Ibrox. It's been bad the past couple of games, I think, already, but it's going to be awful if we start looking like we're not in a position to do well. And Hibs have been on a decent run of form as well. They're not a bad team.
They're a good side.
So there's plenty of risk there. Now,
Bowie,
one final...
Boyle, there's quite a good... Sorry, Andrew. Bowie, Boyle... They've got a new boy in midfield they spent quite a bit of money on that's good. They've got players, and this is going to sound bad, but players that will run through brick walls for them. Guys like Cavanagh, who's, you know, a good fullback who'll get up and down but does a good job in the Scottish game. So look, Hibs are a good side, and I think they'll fancy it tomorrow. Won at Ibrox, didn't they, last time, because Martin Boyle, you know, was given the freedom of the world to run into. So it's going to be a really, really tough game. Something needs to spark us, Andrew. Something needs to kick us off. I sincerely hope it's a victory tomorrow. And, you know, fingers crossed. But I expect Hibs to come and fancy it and come and have a right good go at us. And listen, I've got no issue with saying that Hibs are a good side with a good coach. They're not unbeatable. They're not a world-class team. But they have players that will hurt us if we let them. We can hurt them. This is not me saying they're wonderful and we can't win the game. We can. But I'm just being realistic in terms of this isn't a walkover tomorrow in any shape or form. Hibs will fancy this and think that they can win and try and exploit the massive gaps that we've been leaving. Hopefully that's not the case tomorrow. Hopefully you go and get a result and it kicks it off and we start seeing what we were promised. So, as I said, Hibs, Bowie is a good striker. Boyle is there. They've spent some money, and I would expect it to be a tough tie. So, yeah, as you said, Andrew, I quite like David Gray, I think. And people may or may not remember. See, when they were down bottom last October, I was talking to Gav, the Scotland coefficient boy, and I said at the time that Hibs would finish higher up than Aberdeen and stuff like that up the top, because their numbers at the time they were doing poorly was always quite high, stat-wise, and XG and all this shit that people ignore because it's for geeky people. But it was always kind of pointing to the fact that they were going to turn around and do well under David Gray, and I think they have. As much as we're no friend of Hibs, I do recognise that they're a good football team and they do play well. And there's always, look, Andrew, there's always a possibility they will Hibs it against us. So fingers crossed.
Well, as long as we play as good as Legia Warsaw, then we'll be fine. It's simply as easy as that. They're unbeaten in the league, but we were clinging on to that record until last weekend as well. So we all know that doesn't actually mean that much. Only 6 points. We've got 4. So with that, as bad as we've been, so it's doable. It's beatable. But there are 9 teams currently who are better in the table than we are, and it's up to us to start proving that we can get results, that we can play better, that we can beat teams like this. And hey, there's a prize on offer right there. Semi-final at Hampden. It's a chance to get yourself closer to a cup, get a trophy. reduce some of the noise around you. It's what it's all about. It's Rangers. The pressure isn't going to go away, but it will get easier if you start performing. It's that catch-22. Pressure's horrible, but if you win, pressure doesn't go away, but you get a different kind of pressure. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think it will be an interesting situation for us to see ourselves in, because we're completely past the point where players can claim that, that the manager can claim that players are distracted by other things. We're way at the transfer window now. You know, folk will have had to have gotten over the fact that they aren't going anywhere, if apparently that is why they are distracted. They've had a nice swim in Loch Lomond. You know, they've had a nice walk through the hills. You're set, lads. You're there. If we can find our defensive form that we had against Celtic, and then our attacking form from last season, I guess, then, you know, we have the talent, we have the players. I think we do have a squad of players who are capable of much more than they have shown so far, but it's all there. It's all there for the players and for the manager to change this narrative. We don't, as you said at the start, Stevie, we don't want to be sitting here moaning. It's much more fun when we get to come on and go, this fucking goal was great, wasn't it? Fucking passionate play there. Wonderful. I'd love to be doing that. Instead, we have to sit here in the misery. So make us happy, Rangers. You know, we want reasons to cheer for you. Give us reasons to cheer for you. Really want to see that, lads. Please.
I agree. Yeah, just, you know, get your finger out like everybody, start to finish. But listen, thank you to Nicholas Doc for the kind donation. Not needed, but genuinely, really, really appreciate it. I might give that $5 to the wee man since I made him break into our house this evening. But I suppose, Andrew, before we go, we really need to talk about the independent panel today, talking about Rangers game last week. We spoke about this. I can't remember if it was Wednesday or Monday night. We spoke about the decisions. And it's always a difficult one, right? Because you come on here and you start bleating on about decisions that don't go your way, and it's all conspiracies and stuff like that. I think the standard of refereeing is god awful. I've said that before. We certainly don't seem to get as many as we get given against us, that's for sure. And I think that last week highlights that. Now, I will say this again, and it's probably a ridiculous statement, Andrew, because you never really know, and goals change games and everything else, but Rangers were absolutely awful last week. And I'm not sure if Shanklin's goal doesn't count, that Hearts don't manage to go in and grab a goal anyway, right? So I don't really know. And it's not a statement you can't make, but it's Hearts would probably have got the result given on how we win, right? And that's me trying to be pragmatic and try and say, look, Hearts were good and Rangers really weren't. Aside of a spell for 15 or so minutes. But in that spell of 15 or so minutes, we had a goal unfairly chopped off. What's really frustrating is the ref doesn't even go and look at it again. So VAR have called that wrongly again. VAR have called the handball thing no. And by the way, Beaton's looking right at that. There's just a catalogue of errors there. Now, personally, it's only my personal opinion. I think the way the game went with Rangers performance-wise, especially in that first half, Hearts probably would have won. But I understand people saying to me, Stevie, you can't actually say that because their goal wouldn't have stood, our goals would have, you know, and I understand that completely. Goals change games and everything else. I get it. But it's another high-profile mistake that goes against Rangers that have continually went against Rangers. Now, Rangers have got a few. Talked about it the other night. Butland at Motherwell was certainly one. But you then start scratching your head and go, how many more have we actually had in our favour? Now, to look at it even more difficult, Celtic got a penalty, which has also been ruled by the independent panel as being never should have given. Celtic would have dropped 2 points. What if Rangers had picked up 3 on the Saturday? There's a 5-point swing. Football's fine margins. A cup final cost Philip Clement, ultimately cost him his job. If he had won that League Cup last year, then history could have, it was a sliding doors moment. You go back to Michael Beale and that goal for Dessers that then got to Roof, and Roof scored, sliding door moment, Celtic scored and win the game 1-0. We've been guilty, or we've been on the wrong end of having too many sliding door moments in recent years that have never gone in our favour. So I'm not here to say that other teams don't get those decisions. Some of the decisions, by the way, I believe Dundee United were on the end of a bit of a horror one, etc. properly seen that. But, you know, this isn't just Rangers. I'm no way sitting here saying it's a big bad conspiracy. I think the refereeing standard is woeful. I think since Willie Collum took over, it's woeful and even worse. So I see bad decisions on a weekly basis. This isn't a poor Rangers and everything else. The standard is crap. And VAR was brought in to stop this, Andrew. But the problem is the people making the decisions on the pitch are now making the decisions from behind the screen and picking and choosing if and when they get involved in stuff instead of the laws of the game. So no, again, you know, we pillared Russell Martin and the players for last week, but if the referees had done their job, that could have been mightily different to what we're sitting here saying. What I want, though, is our football club. So put all that to the side, right? We're being fucked over, blah, 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 right? Big rant, everything else. Try to be pragmatic about it and just look at it, you know, level-headed. What's our board doing during all this? Where's Patrick Stewart? Where is Patrick Stewart? You're our CEO. Where's Patrick Stewart? What discussions have you had with the SFA? Never mind cozying up and we're all behind Russell Martin and everything behind the scenes is fantastic and all the other bullshit you come out with. What are you doing about this? Are you challenging this? So ask for an explanation. Make it known again that we've potentially been on the end of game-changing moments, right? Because I can tell you right now, and this is not a conspiracy. This is actually praising them, and I don't want to do it. But see if that happened over the other side of the city, they would have fucking moved hell on high water to have that known to everybody what a conspiracy it was and how they were cheated and everything else, right? And I don't have an issue with that because they make things happen. Go back to that Hearts game where they were beaten 2-0 by Lawrence Shankland, I think, got a couple, and somebody got sent off for them. Christ, I thought it was going to end up in the Parliament by Monday, the way they went on. And it's never happened to them since. We sit, we're thumb up our arse and allow it to happen. Patrick Stewart's supposed to be our CEO. Nothing said at all. Alex Moon, his first staff, none of these guys are where we need them to be. Never mind what's going on behind the scenes and insulating yourself because there's a wee protest coming. See if you actually stood up and grew a pair and defended this football club. Maybe people would cut you some slack. You know what I mean?
Yep. It's a narrative that gets set.
Met with constant silence, Andrew, and that really gets on my tits.
It's a narrative that gets set because we can be a part of that. The club don't need to come out with a statement, but we can make it known to journalists. We can make it known to people, you know, that we're asking hard questions behind the scenes. We just hear silence. Then the only topic of conversation is Loch Lomond instead during the week. So if we're not kicking up fuss and going, we were robbed, which we were. You know, we were denied a goal and we had a goal awarded. We had 2 goals awarded against us that shouldn't have counted. Like, that swings a game. It does. It's still not an excuse. Rangers were abysmal. We played terribly. We didn't deserve to win that game. But we'll never know if the game isn't being refereed to a fair standard. So we have never been good, I think, at setting this agenda for a long while now. And it is, again, a failing, I think, of the current board. It's something that needs to change. It's not going to happen overnight, but I would like to think that the new ownership can at least start recognizing that this is a problem, because it's the first step. The only way to fix a problem is to recognize that there is one. And if we see that continuous, as you said, Stevie, 5-point swings happening during the course of just one weekend, if we see patterns continuing to emerge there, then the new ownership, Cavanagh and Pragmarati, have got to start acting on it. They have to do something about it. Otherwise, you're just going to wind up in the same situation that you've had for the past 15 years. That's not exactly ideal.
No, see, just to highlight this from Bluebells, right? Stewart is the invisible man, Stevie, only pops up when he wants to critique our own fans, critique our own fans. Right, listen, see if that's unfair, Andrew. Then, okay, Patrick Stewart, sorry about that. But it's not unfair because it's all we see. We judge on the behaviour you show us.
Mm-hmm.
See, when you're very quick to apologise for a banner that was a total nonsense and you're busy sending out apologies at half-time and everything else and all this nonsense, see when it comes to the actual crunch, when you need to defend the football club or you need to defend our fans and whatever else, and you're found silent, people will come to that judgment of Stewart is the invisible man, Stevie. Stewart's only interested in himself. Stewart's not interested in Rangers. Stewart's an Aberdeen fan. Stewart doesn't really care about this, that. That is all fair game when you sit silently with your thumb up your arse, watching that last week happen and not do anything about it. And see if it's happened behind the scenes and all that. That's absolutely fine. Make it known. You don't need to make statements of that. You can make it known by people in the media that are friendly with the football club, or even fan media. Use them, not real journalists, of course, but you could use them to make it known the football club have raised this and they're challenging it, behind the scenes. No, we just sit. And while we sit, it creates a vacuum. When it creates a vacuum, you create space like me to have a moan, for people like me to have a moan and start throwing about, accusations of Patrick Stewart and everything else, because their behaviour gives us no other choice. Sit silently, people will fill that silence. And it's not good enough.
Always has been, mate. Listen, folks, we rambled on for nearly an hour, which is ridiculous.
You mean we. You didn't say anything, mate. Out of 56 minutes, your ball's been in play for about 8. So it's my fault, man. I apologise to everybody listening to me.
Folks, we've had a good time. I've had a good time. I love doing this show with Stevie because I can just basically ask a question and wind him up and then let him go. It's great fun for me. It's really easy. It is always a pleasure to come on and talk Rangers with you, mate. And it's always a pleasure to hang out with our fans as well. Everyone in the comments today, fantastic comments all round. The generosity from people who have donated memberships, who have just donated money, has been great. That's fantastic as well. Possession based, doesn't matter what you do with a possession. It's, do you score goals on it as well? I've had to get up and, stop my cats from feeding themselves spherical. So, I've had a very productive pod today.
I've created plenty of chances tonight as well. So,
what were we talking about? Oh, yeah. I'm trying to wrap up the pod. That's what I'm trying to do. Right, folks. It's been a pleasure. It really has. It's always good to hang out with you guys on a Friday night, and we hope that you've enjoyed it. We hope that you guys have had a good time. I've had a good time. Stevie, a pleasure as always, my friends. I hope that we have a pleasant viewing experience tomorrow with the vlog. Have you got anyone on with you this weekend?
Yeah, Scotty Kearney's joining me from Club 22. None of our guys wanted to do it. So Scotty is up, long overdue as well. So we got a wee crossover there. We'll be on with the match day vlog. It better not be shite again, Andrew. I can't take it. Honestly. Just be good. Just see the goal. See that thing with the net in it. Just try and kick it in that. It might be fun. You know what I mean? Just
be great.
But genuinely though, thanks to everybody. Thanks for joining us. If you haven't, please like and subscribe. Really helps us grow. We're over 10,500 subs, Andrew. I keep saying this every week. The growth is unbelievable. Great shows this week with Chris during the week. A lot of feedback on Chris. Chris will be back on every Wednesday with us. And it's been great, the feedback. Thanks to our sponsors as well, Andrew, Rhino Express, Clyview Joinery, Afflo Industrial Solutions, CSD Air Conditioning, and our partners Black Rooster and Art of Gold. I've had fun. It's been a bit of a soapbox, I'm sorry. But it's just been chatting. I forget that people are watching and then just rabbit shite for an hour. So apologies, everyone. But have a great weekend. Come on, Rangers, tomorrow. Good luck to the management. Good luck to the players. Just go and win. And then we can have fun. Nobody goes on Paddy Power and it's all just a good thing,
We don't ever ask for much. We just want wins. That's all we've ever wanted. I also can't believe that Chris is back. I had to move to a whole other podcast and he's followed me around. Disgraceful. But yeah, it's going to be good fun. It's, as ever, folks, it's a pleasure to have you guys with us tonight. Nearly 3,500 of you watching, which is ridiculous. Come on, go out and spend your Friday nights elsewhere. So grateful to all your support. Thank you so much. If you're not a member, please do consider signing up. If you do sign up, you'll get an access to a wonderful Jock Wallace documentary that myself and Davey Hurd put together. Davey Hurd did all the work. I just did some sellotaping and cutting and pasting. You've also got exclusive interviews with John Wallace, which is Jock Wallace's son, which was fascinating, really interesting stuff. There's a whole mess of content on there, and you can watch all of these videos and streams ad-free as well. which we do as a thanks to anyone who does sign up as a member. So thank you all so much. We truly appreciate all your support. We say it every time, but your support has always been ridiculously humbling to us. Honestly, it's astonishing, the level that you guys have shown. So thank you all so very much. Come on, Rangers, just get a win tomorrow, please, for all our sakes. And until we talk to you again, guys, bye for now.
The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.